One Piece will go down as one of the best works of fiction I have ever read. And Oda himself is a madman. Let me tell you why. I usually wait for a chapter to drop before I make a video like this, but I accidentally saw the leaks and I have to talk about it. So spoilers for the newest chapter of One Piece, chapter 1113. I was minding my business, enjoying my day yesterday when my boy Kata came to me and said, yo, listen, drop whatever you're doing and go read the leaks because what you did in 2021 may be coming true. And I was like, huh? The Great Flood. And he's like, damn right, brother. Go claim your theory. I know many people have made theories on this throughout the years, but let me tell you mine. So sit down, buckle up, and enjoy the ride. I know in the beginning I said accidentally, but nah, after hearing that, I sprinted and read the whole summary. But hey, I won't spoil you the whole thing, just this part right here. As we close on the chapter, Vegapunk makes his historic announcement. He proclaims that the world is going to sink into the ocean. Break week next week. I tried to tell you and the hints were all there, but let me count the ways. When we go back and take a look at the kingdoms, this kingdom, this kingdom, this kingdom, this kingdom, all have something in common. They all have a way to manage the flow of water. It becomes way more important now with everything that Vegapunk is telling us. Interesting one is Alabasta, because Alabasta is originally in the desert. But from the Gadatsu cover story with him finding a hot spring right next to Alabasta, it is very apparent that this was not the case all the time. And that Alabasta was originally a place filled with water. Look at this huge rise before the capital was actually built. This will become important later. Order 7 will also have something in common, that their original infrastructures are both underwater. Here's Wano, and here was Water 7, and the reason why their city's underwater is because Aqua Laguna keeps coming back with more water, and the sea level continues to rise, which Vegapunk was basically telling us in this chapter. After the destruction of the Lucia Kingdom, the earthquakes caused the sea levels to rise about 1 meter. On this page, we get to see 3 important figures: Iceberg, Momonosuke, and Laboon. Because of Aqua Laguna and realizing the sea levels keep rising, he said he wanted to build an island that floated on the sea. And oh, is that perfect timing. Momonosuke, the shogun of Wano, the man who will lead the world into the new dawn, and realizing after reading Oden's journal, he cannot die. Spoken of the man protecting Pluton from the world, to the man with the voice of all things able to control Zunisha, a creature that holds an island way above the sea level. And lastly, Laboon, the whale that keeps bashing his head against the red line in order to return. The red line we'll also talk about a little later. And now moving forward to my next point, we jump all the way to Skypiea because Anel said something very interesting. About the Sky Island, he said, the foundation of this country in the sky is unnatural. Land is a place for land, humans have a place for humans, and the kami has a place for the kami. Each has a place to which it must return. It says nothing is impossible. As the kami, I'm just following the laws of nature. His ideology is pretty interesting, but I'll say that for later in the video. When Vegapunk was telling us more about devil fruits, he said something very interesting. All those powers represent the many branches of the future of humanity, but the unnatural status is loathed by the sea, the mother of nature. That is why people who eat devil fruit sink. And then I bring it back to what Anel said. The foundation of the country in the sky is unnatural. Each has a place to which it must return. I'm only following the laws of nature. One thing we know about the One Piece world is that from island to island, the weather always changes, even if they're in close proximity to each other. And that each island has its own unique magnetic pole, and you can't just traverse the seas all willy-nilly without a log post. And that the weather, the sea level, and the sea conditions can change in an instant. And that's because the current One Piece world that we know has been altered, and is just trying to return to its natural state. And how it was altered was this huge man-made red line. Another interesting thing from Skypiea that I like looking at is the Verf statue and how it can possibly be the race of Musama. Let's move on. 2 notable pirates said one thing, but looking at it again, it actually has more meaning. Roger told Rayleigh, what do you say to turning the world upside down with me? Later on calls the Great Pirate Era. And Whitebird also said, I'm not interested in the treasure, but when it's found, the whole world will be turned upside down. Looking at it again, that's literally. One Piece world sinking. Fishermen will be forced to come up, and the Celestial Dragon at the top of the red line will be forced to come down. But if you made it to this part of the video, put your tinfoil caps on because it's gonna get interesting. Those of you who do not know about the mud flood theory, let me enlighten you. As I read this to you, listen with your One Piece lens on. Mud flood was a worldwide cataclysm that took place sometime in the 1800s. A disaster that wiped out a worldwide advanced civilization and allowed the nations as we know them today to rise up. The event was a mud flood, in which several meters of the mud washed in and buried the ground levels of houses and buildings everywhere. Those cities and towns that were partially buried constitute the worldwide advanced civilization called Tartaria, which had free wireless energy and was populated, at least in part, by giants. It was a civilization reset, out with the old, in with the new, and the new civilization is us. Now tell me that don't remind you of something. Let's draw the connection. The disaster that wiped out a worldwide advanced civilization. Punk tells us that this ancient giant was actually built in the past. All his technological advances can be due in part to them. All the nations as we know them today to rise up. The 20 kingdoms banded together in order to take down the Great Kingdom. The event was a mud flood in which several meters of mud washed in and buried the ground levels of houses and buildings everywhere. Remember I told you to remember Alabasta? This rise and the kingdom built on top of it. Wano, these borders being erected and their original infrastructure being underwater with new city being built on top of it. Water 7, the infrastructure is in the water, their new city is on top of it. And lastly, Pangea. Red line being the mud flood, Joie being built on top of it, to the red line becoming a dam for the entire One Piece world. The cities in town were partially buried constituted the worldwide advanced civilization called Tartaria, which had free wireless energy and was populated, at least in part, by giants. Need I say more? And at one point, this giant robot went all the way to Marijois for some reason. Everything must return to its natural state. The free wireless energy is very reminiscent to Vegapunk's dream. And Jinbei says this: the resources that we use to create energy are a constant source of war and squabbling between nations. And Vegapunk says precisely, how foolish mankind is. And he says this: one day I hope to create my ideal world through science, a world in which energy is abundant, available and free to everyone around the globe. Trust me, people in power would not like this. Even in our world today, they would hate it, because countries in the world will become more self-sufficient. Mines and oil rigs will be shut down, developing countries will be throttled, and undeveloping countries will begin to rise and increase their foothold or footprint on the world. More countries would enter the OECD prosperity, but the geopolitical issues that arise from this would be the most interesting part. The world government really wanted to control the information and the people. This would cause a shake in their power. In our world, the big banks wouldn't have a chokehold on us. The war would decrease exponentially, which would cause a huge shock to a lot of countries, especially those who are very reliant on their military in order to gain power and money. Is Oda using One Piece in order to tell the story of the Tartarian Empire? Who knows? And the last part, populated at least in part by giants. It was a civilization reset, out with the old, in with the new, and the new civilization is us. The story of the ancient giant race is coming. Just so happened that the next place we're headed to is Elbath. Is that everything? Oh no, sir. There's more. Like Jinbei said, fighting for resources in order to create energy was a big problem for mankind. But if they were to have free energy like Vegapunk wants, the fight for resources for everything else would then increase. This was shown in Enel's cover story. Enel himself is free, unlimited energy, and he actually restored an ancient city called Burka on the moon. In doing so, he learned more about the moon people and learned that even though they were a place with abundant energy, they still needed to go to the blue planet because they lacked natural resources. And I said I would talk about Enel later in the video, but the reason why Enel is the way he is because Enel is in an awakened zone. It's like how when Luffy awakened, he had the white clouds around him, or the God clouds. Enel is essentially the drums. Like, huh? Like how? How does that make sense? Because Enel being from Burka has a different mindset and different ideology than everyone else we've seen from Burka. And he also believes that kamis or gods have a place for gods, and that is on the moon. And with his lack of wings and his ideology in thinking so means that he has to get it from somewhere else. Because of what Shaka said right here, it's usually the case the awakened zone powers absorb and control the user's personality. Answer exactly why Enel is the way he is. The reason why I mentioned Elbath, the ancient giants, and those two gods last is because that's where we're headed to after Egghead. The huge war. Ragnarok. Remember with Oda's writing, he always wants to add a ticking time bomb in the back to add more suspense to the story. Alabasta was a bomb with Pell, Wano was the dropping of Onigashima, this chapter was Vegapunk's message, you get the gist. And here's a connection to Norse mythology. See, Ragnarok starts with the Great Winter. Isles will darken and the sun god will disappear. Ragnarok stands for the doom of gods. The battle that happens at the end of the world, and with Vegapunk's message chapter, that is on the horizon. The battle is between the gods, who are led by Odin, and the fire giants, the Jotnar, and other monsters led by Yoki and Surtur. The Straw Hats go into Elbath, and we know Loki is already a character in the story. That is about to happen. Remember what that said, the beginning of Ragnarok happens with the Great Winter. Remember one thing with Elbath, the winter solstice. According to the beliefs of Elbath, every year a winter solstice festival is held to celebrate the death and rebirth of the sun god, Luffy. It is said that afterwards the sun's warmth will return to end the winter season. The beginning of Ragnarok is held in the same birth, the disappearing of the sun. It all connects because Oda is a madman. The ancient giant on the move, and his last known motive was him attacking Marijois. Name Pangea rings through as well. I mentioned Laboon and the Red Line, all being turned upside down into its natural state. This battle may bring the destruction of the Red Line, causing a true Pangea and all the islands connecting once again. Also the creation of the All Blue, creating One Piece. The story is coming to a fast conclusion, and it's all because of this man right here, Dr. Vegapunk. From his message, we may learn a lot, and possibly even the name of the ancient kingdom. But I believe the name of the ancient kingdom is